Right about now,
you're about to witness
the Funk Soul Brother.
The Strange Story of Jonathan Small.
Jeff Chang, welcome to the podcast.
Jeff joins us from the Bay Area. Jeff is, if you haven't heard of Jeff, he's fantastic. He's a journalist. He's a cultural critic. He's an author, a podcaster. His book that I love so much is called Can't Stop, Won't Stop, The History of Hip Hop Generation. It's really one of the better books ever written about hip hop. And that's hard to do, man, because there's a lot of books about hip hop, but Jeff really got in there and got some really amazing insights and quotes and, taught me stuff I didn't know. And I know a lot about hip hop. So that was really cool.
Yes.
He also has a Substack called Notes from the Edge. And he does a podcast of the same name. He also has a podcast called Edge of Reason. And also I should tout your latest book, which is called Water Mirror Echo, which examines Bruce Lee's impact on Asian American identity and global culture. That's a whole other podcast to talk about Bruce Lee. I would love to do that. But we're gonna dive into hip hop here. And I thought I've been wanting to talk about hip hop on this podcast for so long, but I felt like I needed to have a real expert on to really school us, old school us on what we need to know and to both celebrate it and sort of understand where Gen X falls in the story of hip hop, which is actually a pretty major role. But before we get into that, let's start with you first. First rap you ever heard. What do you remember? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah, probably Rapper's Delight.
I said the hip to the hip hop, you don't stop the rocker to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello.
Me too.
And yeah, I mean that's our age group, that's our cohort, and probably like you all, like we were just everybody in the halls, in the school halls, in the in the locker room and that kind of thing, trying to like memorize all the lyrics.
Right.
To the like short version into the whole 15-minute version. But yeah, that was it for me.
That was
like
seminal.
yeah,
That was probably like what, early 80s, like late or
no,
70s,
that was
90s?
1979, 19.
Yeah.
Well, maybe in Hawaii we might have gotten it like a little later. Maybe it was.
Were you in Hawaii at the time?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Hawaii.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, so I feel like I was part of the generation that came into hip hop when it started like cruising in on these like international, like like when Japan is getting it, that's like when we're getting it, that type of vibe.
Yep. Yeah.
Even though the U.S. colonized Hawaii, so it's an American state, but yeah, I feel like that's like how we got it. But the other vibe was there's a lot of transit. It's early here. on the
Transient.
West
I know it's
Coast.
freaking early. I don't know why.
It was a lot of transit between the West Coast and Hawaii. So, like we got tutters, we got strutters, we got poppers, we got lockers, we got all of those folks like coming back and forth from Los Angeles and the Bay Area to Hawaii. And so those dance forms actually predated us hearing Rapper's Delight.
That's really interesting to hear, because here all the way in Hawaii, here I am in New York. The first time I ever heard Rapper's Delight was in Tarrytown, New York, which is like a suburb of New York City.
Yeah.
There was a guy named Kamathi Evans who I have to reach out to because this guy basically changed my life. He didn't know it at the time, but Kamathi, there was a middle school dance and he put on Rapper's Delight, and it was the first time I'd ever heard that record, and I was freaking out. And I mean, I didn't know what it was, and I just loved it so much. And like you, it just like, boom. It was like, who knew? There was like a moment pre-Rapper's Delight and then the post-Rapper's Delight moment. Little did I know it would be like, so, but that, I kind of always was under the impression, even though Rapper's Delight was one of the first, and you'll tell us this, was one of the first raps ever to be put on vinyl, right? It was a very early rap in the vinyl era. I mean, there were other raps on vinyl before that, but it seemed like the first one to really go mainstream.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of unique to like the East Coast because I felt like I was because of my proximity to the Bronx, even though, I mean, the difference between Westchester and the Bronx is stark. It was still 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I still felt like I had, and I remember I couldn't even find Rapper's Delight in my local Sam Goody at the mall. They
Oh,
didn't
wow.
have Rapper's Delight, so I had to actually go to the Bronx to buy the record.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting. But anyway, that's interesting that it was that even, six, whatever it is, 5,000 miles away, you guys still were able to get that record. It's incredible.
Yeah,
It
we
shows,
got it. It was a worldwide hit, right? Like you
right.
have people in Jamaica
Yeah.
and Brazil covering it and kind of flipping it, obviously in their own kind of Afro-diasporic way. You had cover versions in like the Netherlands and Germany and
Wow.
and in France and Spain. And so I think there's one, I'm pretty sure we did this book called Born in the Bronx, a while back, an amazing um, sort of pictorial history of the early years of hip hop that Johann Kugelberg had put together. And a lot of the stuff came from his collection. But I remember there was a page, I was using this for a while in lectures, of just the cover versions of Rapper's Delight all around the
Really?
world. Yeah. And I mean, like, why would Jamaica need to cover Rapper's Delight? But that was, I think, how much it ignited,
Well, that's so
Like,
interesting also
yeah,
because that music came from Jamaica. I mean,
that's what I
right?
mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the original rap is from
Yeah.
the
Why would you do it in Brazil? There's already like a long tradition in Brazil of it's not toasting, but it's similar. It's like freestyle rapping over like their tambourine and that kind of thing. So there's it was something that
let's
really was what's up?
I tried to figure out what was it about Rapper's Delight that made it go so mainstream because like I said, there was raps before, there was
Mm,
example rap. I mean, Cool
mhm,
DJ Herc he was doing more of the DJ thing, but
yeah.
there was raps before. There's like the Cold Crush crew or the Cold Crush brothers. What was it?
Coke Crush Brothers, yeah.
Cold Crush brothers.
Fantastic Five, who face
Yeah.
off in Wild Style. Yeah, no, I think what it was like it was geared towards a commercial audience, So you had, like, if we can go all the way back to that particular period, like, hip hop was really a live thing,
Mhm.
it was the type of thing that you went and experienced live.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
you went on the weekends or you went, on a Thursday night to go see Cold Crush Brothers, and they would do these routines and it would be part of like this long DJ set that was going on. So it was like a flow, right? It's a flow as opposed to a moment in time, which is what a record is. Does that
Yep.
make sense? So
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
so they're doing these rhymes and then they're doing the interstitials, like they're getting the crowd hype and that kind of stuff. It's a different function, right?
Yeah.
When you had Rapper's Delight, what you had was a record that Sylvia Robinson like manufactured to market this stuff worldwide. So she had these two unknown rappers from New Jersey, and she had, Big Bank Hank, who was like Grandmaster Caz's manager because he had the sound system,
Yeah.
and Grandmaster Caz lent him his lyrics. So you got these two guys, who nobody's ever heard of, and then you have Big Bang Hank, and that they kind of structure it with the house band into like a song,
Right.
and then they cut the radio edit for it. So it's like it's as if you kind of packaged, you know. I don't know if anybody's listening from DC or the DMV area, but it's like if you had packed it's like they did the same thing with go-go music at about the same time. Um,
Okay, production.
and,
Right.
yeah, and go-go never made it out of the live format
Yeah.
to record, but hip hop did. And
Get
and
translated
so
somehow. Yeah.
yeah, so it translates to this portable disc that can then be, sold all around the world.
That's so interesting.
And yeah,
I remember you saying, I
yeah,
think I read in your book about, people were even, we were talking about how there's a 15-minute version of Rappers. Like people were like, I couldn't believe they got it down to 15 minutes. It's like usually like
yeah.
a 5-minute show. Like that's
That was Chuck. Yeah, Chuck D said that. Yeah, Chuck D. He recalls the night that rappers he first heard Rappers Delight when he was in front of the mic. So
yeah.
like Good Times is the jam, and that's the thing that everybody's playing at the party. He goes up and he sort of freestyles over it, and then like the DJ mixed in Rappers Delight, and so he's suddenly like, oh, what's that? He kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
starts lip syncing to it. And everybody comes up to him the next day and they're like, man, that was incredible. Like that rap that you did, like 50 minutes straight. Wow. And Chuck was going, I didn't do that. I just sort of lip synced
I
it.
pretended.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have this, because we both grew up in the 80s,
Yeah.
so influenced by rap and loving rap. I have a real bond to that era of rap. And I feel like, sort of in the conversation of hip hop, now that we're like 50 years, 60 years since these days, since the really early days of hip hop, sometimes the 80s is brushed over a little bit in the as the importance of it. Like people focus a lot on they kind of almost feel like it started in the 90s, right? Like that's because that was really what's considered like the golden era of rap, like the whole Native Tongues era and Jay-Z. A lot of
Yeah.
times people, maybe you disagree with that.
Well,
And then
I kind of don't believe in a golden age, but I think when folks talk about the golden age, they talk about something like 87 to like 97. 97 is really the year
right.
Biggie dies, and it's also the year that hip hop reaches this sort of commercial inflection point. So yeah.
So why do you think the 80s is sort of underrated first, before I even ask that question, let's talk about some of like the seminal moments of the 80s, because there are certain moments. We talked Rappers Delight. To me, that's like, for me, that's my origin story, right? Like that's
Yeah.
when I first
Yeah.
discovered
Yeah.
rap. But then, to me, so I was trying to think back and did a little research about like, and your book covers a lot of these moments. Some of the, we could skip ahead a little or even before, but if we just look at the 80s in whole, like what were some of the biggest moments that sort of changed everything?
Yeah.
One thing, it's sort of almost, people forget about this maybe, but it was Rapture, right? The fact that Rapture came out,
Right at the
and
beginning of the decade. Yeah. 81.
right at the beginning, 81,
Yeah.
Blondie.
Yeah.
People don't, used to take it for granted now when somebody raps in the middle of a song, but nobody did that back then, right? Nobody really knew what rap was unless you were us. Like mainstream culture did not know what rap was.
Freddie told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said, my, flash is fast, flash is cool, Francois, c'est pas, flash ain't no do, and you don't stop, sure shot, go out to the parking lot, and you get in your car and drive real far, and you drive all night, and then you see a light, and it comes right down and lands on the ground, and out comes a man from Mars, and you try to run, but he's got a gun, and he shoots you dead, and he eats your head, and then you're in the man from Mars. You go out at night, eating cars, you eat
Can you talk about that? Like, what was it like? How that happened? Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. So, hip hop, I think, first of all, Rappers Delight kind of changes the game, right? This is a largely live type of music. You have to go to the clubs. So by virtue of that fact, it's already limited to a particular geographic area, right? Which
Right.
is literally the black clubs, brown clubs in New York City, uptown mostly, the Bronx, you've got parties going off in Brooklyn, and the Lower East Side. But it's, you have to be there type of
Yep.
scene. And I think once the record comes out, everybody's like, oh, that there's a lot more to be done here. There's more money to be made. A lot of the rappers who are at the top of the scene, like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, are like, oh, we can make a they've been trying to get them to make a record for a long time, the independent
Right.
record label folks. And they're like, oh, we can make a record and publicize our live gig on Saturday. Like that's like an advertisement for our live gig.
Yeah, it's all
They
about
didn't really like see the future
the
coming,
money.
right?
Yeah.
Right. But I think what happens is, increasingly you have the avant-garde, the downtown punk rock, and sort of new wave avant-garde folks who are mixing it up in the art galleries.
Andy
So they're
Warhol. Yeah. And
right. And they're like, by day they're in the art galleries and stuff, and they're like championing graffiti art,
right.
by these teenagers, from all parts of the city. And then by night they're wanting to party, and so they're inviting, the Rocksteady crew to come and dance. Or Fab Five Freddy is over there making connections. His book is coming out, by the way.
Yeah. I want to have
Going
him
to be
on.
a really important book to
Yeah.
read. Fab Five Freddy is making connections. Jean-Michel Basquiat's there meeting Keith Haring. They're all sort of hanging out, and the soundtrack is the music of the Zulu Nation DJs. And so this is where you start hearing post-punk in New York City trying to go funky, right? And
Yeah.
you also hear people like Blondie, who, this is a group,
CBGB. Yeah.
CBGBs, but they've been really, really close to the the scene because of Fab Five Freddy and Grandmaster Flash. They're like, oh, what the hell? Let's make a rap record.
Yeah.
Like why not, right?
Right. It's the hip
And
thing. Right. Yeah.
like like Gwen Stefani is going to want to do that later on, right? Like
Yeah.
20 years later or whatever. Like, why don't I make a rap record? Sure. Like we'll bring in Eve. But it's a type of vibe where uh this is like Blondie's already a huge group. And so when they make Rapture, it becomes a worldwide hit and that kind of continues to spread, the news. And then you actually have the video where they've got
Yeah.
Graffiti, they've got Fab, they've got, Jean Michel, they've got all these folks in it, and they're all kind of partying, and it looks like a lot of fun. And they're signaling this is the new style.
Right.
To fast forward up to 1986 and the Beastie Boys, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So Rapture, big moment. And again, I'm just going to throw things out at you and you can
yeah,
add things too.
yeah,
Another big moment for me was when The Message came out. So The Message, I don't know how many people remember The Message, hearts for that one, but I remember The Message. It wasn't actually to me the first message rap there had been. I feel like there had been other raps that were about life on the streets and like weren't just about bragging and boasting and that kind of stuff.
yeah. But there were other like independent records that had come out that were
Right.
commenting on sort of social commentary in
Yeah,
the
the
vein
social
of like
commentary.
Gil Scott Heron and the Last Poets and stuff for sure. They were
Right.
too.
So the message, yeah, oh yeah, Gil Scott Heron, of course. The revolution will be televised. Won't be televised. But so yeah, so talk about that. So the message is funny because there's a lot of that's Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. But my understanding of that was that he couldn't really get like the whole group to even want to do that rap, right? They weren't really into it.
Well, he
They're
didn't
like,
want to do it. He
yeah,
actually didn't want to
Grandmaster
do it.
Flash
Yeah.
didn't do it. Yeah,
Yeah. So Sylvia Robinson again, she's a really important figure. She's like the head of Sugar Hill Records.
right.
So it's an independent, black owned, black woman owned, record label that's based in Inglewood, New Jersey.
Which is
Again,
where I used to work.
more shout outs to New
What's Up
Jersey.
Twist magazine where I used to work was in
Okay.
Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, which is funny.
And
Didn't
so
think Hank worked at a pizza parlor or something in Englewood. I think.
no,
Anyway,
yeah. So I think she was in the Bronx and she actually
okay.
visited and walked in, and that's how she heard Hank playing one of the tapes that they had recorded of the Cold Crush Brothers,
Wow.
and he's rapping along to it, and she's like, and her not her, but her son is like, oh hey, like you're a rapper, and he's like, yeah, sure, you know,
Right. He
and
wasn't. He
oh
was the
come on, yeah,
manager.
come on and meet
Yeah.
these other guys. We're gonna make this recording, and that's how they make Rappers Delight. So the next thing that comes along, right, is Sylvia. She's an independent record label owner. She's like looking for the next thing, which is what you're doing if you're in the culture industry, right? You're always trying to figure out what the next thing's going to be. And 1982 is a really tough time for everybody across the US, but especially for Black communities. It's it's like kind of like now, like where we are now in the second Trump administration. That's where
Yeah.
we are in the first Reagan administration.
That's
So you can
interesting.
imagine, right? Reagan, what's that?
Maybe out of all this chaos and horribleness, some great music will arrive. Hopefully.
We can hope. We should
No.
That's one of the things we can hope for as well as, working for all the things that we need. But
Right.
but I think at that particular moment, right, like there's high unemployment, the social services are being slashed. There's a feeling of real despair, I think in a lot of
Yeah.
communities. And so she's thinking, we have to take rap back to its roots and being able to tell the truth about what's really going on in the world.
Mm.
And of course, there's been a long, long line of this, right? We could look at some of James Brown's raps in the
Right.
1960s where he's talking about heroin or he's talking about, having pride in yourself and those kinds of things. That's what she's thinking. And so one of her house band musicians, guy who goes by the name of Duke Booty, writes
Mhm.
this song that's actually really influenced. It's more down tempo. It's really influenced by Sly and Robbie, Sly Dunbar, rest in peace.
Mm.
And what they're doing in Jamaica, Compass Point Studios for Tom Tom Club later on, and Grace Jones, and a whole bunch of other amazing artists. And they've got a really intense sound that kind of reflects like a sort of sense of authenticity, a sort of sense of rootedness.
Yeah.
So he's experimenting with that, and he creates this musical track. And he's like, I've been writing these lyrics about how tough times are. And she's like, this is great. This is going to be our next big label hit.
Oh,
And
cool.
she's like, let's take this to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five because they're sort of our number one group. And Flash is like, no, we don't. This is what people go to parties
Yeah.
to get away from, right? The other
Right.
guys in the crew are like, no. But Melly Mel, right?
Yeah.
Rah. He's
Yeah,
like Melly Mel is like, hey man, like I've got these lyrics that I've written. Like, why don't you check this out? And it's sort of this story of a low-level criminal who like goes bad, he falls into this downward spiral and he ends up hanging himself. I'm not giving anything away because you probably heard the message.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they're like, okay, let's go. Let's make this record. And so because Melly Mel's on board, they're able to put it out as Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back. Junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far. Cause a man with a tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the
and it becomes huge because it hits that moment where they like, this is something that people want to hear. People want to hear, like, this is like the truth being represented. This is not what they're showing you on TV. This is not like, smiling Ronald Reagan, Morning in America. This is like some real stuff.
Yeah. As Chuck D said, the CNN, well, that was later, but the CNN of the street. Yeah. That is so interesting. I didn't really know the full story there. So in a way, the Bootsy Booty, did he write the "Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge," or was that Melly Mel? Like how did they combine their, was it that he wrote the music and Melly Mel put the lyrics in?
Like Duke Booty, I think, wrote those lyrics, if I'm not mistaken, and wrote like the first few verses of
Broken Glass Everywhere.
Yeah. No, the Broken Glass Everywhere is Melly Mel. So Melly Mel comes in, that's his verse. That's his original verse.
Amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the great records, The Message. I am so excited to play this on my podcast version. Boom. Okay, that's where I play it. You talk a lot about in your book, and you just mentioned Zulu Nation when you were talking about Blondie. So I would say that Africa Bambaata's Planet Rock was another huge moment, kind of like shifted everything. Can we talk a little bit about that rap and about him and
Just taste the funk and hit me. Just get on down and hit me. Bambaata's getting so funky now, hit me. Yeah, just hit me.
It's time to chase your dreams about the seats. Make your body sway. Socialize. Get down. Let your soul lead the way. Shake it now. Go, ladies.
It's a living dream.
Love, life, live. Come play
The game.
Our world is free. Do what you want, but free.
So the two records are sort of twinned, right?
Yeah.
By history and by this moment. 1982 was a really important year for hip hop. And because this is sort of the next sort of like, if you're looking at this sort of chart, right? Rapper's Delight, and then like 1982, the summer of 1982, where The Message and Planet Rock are these two hits, and they're twinned in a way, because on the one hand, you've got like The Message, which is trying to present like this very realist like point of view, like this is what's really going on the streets, like this is the stuff that you're not getting on the network news at night.
yeah.
And Grandmaster Flash's, well, the Message like kind of holds that space, because it's sort of then the jumping off point for groups that come along later, like Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions,
Yeah.
Nas, right? Like all of these folks that come on, and and to a large extent as well, you can also put in NWA in there. You can put in all of these other folks who say their Ice Cube is talking about reality rap, right? Like there's a line that you can trace directly to the message. And the other one that is kind of happening is Planet Rock is like an expression of like Zulu Nation philosophy at that particular time. And the Zulu Nation is like really a former gang that's become sort of known now more for organizing parties.
Right.
And so like the core of Zulu Nation comes from the gang era, right? But it's also sort of because of Bambaata's force of personality, transformed into a group that's looking at all of these different types of philosophies. Like Bambaata is influenced by, the Nation of Islam. He's influenced by Afrocentrism. He's influenced by like aliens. He's influenced by conspiracy like theories, way out conspiracy
Movie
theories.
called Zulu that apparently is a Michael Caine movie, right?
Yeah, well, that was where the idea came from. So it's sort of, but it presents sort of this, that Zulu Nation takes on this sort of cosmology, and they're kind of related to this utopian picture of what hip hop could be, of this force of taking like the death drive and turning it into a creative drive,
Yeah.
if you will, right? So if you listen to the lyrics of it, it's a lot more, it's playful, right? It's like, it's a lot more open. It's literally like you're zooming through the universe. It's like, it's sunrise, right?
Yeah.
It's very utopic. It's sort of like the hip hop version of the Summer of Love, if you will.
Yeah.
On Planet Rock, right? Like this is all like we're all here on this planet and we're rocking together, and it's sort of this utopian vision of folks living in peace, like across different types of cultural backgrounds. And so the two of them kind of fit together, right? You got this hardcore reporting from the street side, and you got this sort of like universal like image of uplift that like has links right back to like John Coltrane and Alice Coltrane and Pharoah Sanders and spiritual jazz in so many types of ways. And I think that's like the interesting duality that kind of gets set up in 1982. Yeah.
And of course, Planet Rock is also, I think when I think of Planet Rock, I think of breakdancing, because it's more, you can't really breakdance to the message. I mean, people probably have, but Planet Rock.
That was the point, right? Like Flash is like, folks are not going to dance to this. That's what they want to be in a club for, right? It's
party,
like, it's probably in the high 100s BPMs, and Planet Rock, solid, boom, 130. Like that's the speed at which you're getting
sample. Although we should mention that Planet Rock, that was also interesting that he reached into an obscure German electronic band, Kraftwerk, and found this beat and a break. He basically found a break and then, made it his own. Yeah.
And sped it up actually. The like that's like that. Yeah. But that's such an interesting thing about like influence, right? Like Kraftwerk was influenced to make that kind of music because they were trying to make like a German industrial version of James Brown. They were influenced by James Brown.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So like a group like Can is taking it in Can is taking it in like a more of a tribal kind of rock type of dimension, and Kraftwerk is trying to like have the computers playing James Brown.
That's wild. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah.
All right. Other incredible moments from the 80s that changed everything. I mean, I know there are my moments, right? Like, for example, and I don't think this is probably goes down in history as one of the great moments, but when Grandmaster Flash put out The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel, for me, that was a seminal moment. Because that was the first DJ record. Like that was the first time we heard DJs, and that apparently is all live, which is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
He's doing that in real time. But that record, if you guys don't know, I totally download this off of, or totally stream this one. But it is Grandmaster Flash showing what a DJ can do, right? Like scratching and cutting, and to me, I must have listened to that record 10,000 times.
You say 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, girls, let's rock that.
5 Freddy told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said, my, Flash is back, Flash is back, Flash is fast, Flash is cool, Francois, c'est pas, Flash ain't no do.
You say 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, girls, let's rock that.
Like, like I just, as a
Yeah.
DJ, it's the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my life. So that was a big moment for me. I was surprised they ever even released that record, but that was cool. The
I
other
love
thing
that
that
record. And
I
that's like
love,
the beginning of turntablism, right? Every
right,
DJ, I could say without a doubt, every DJ here in the Bay Area, all the Filipino American DJs, like we're listening to that and going, how do I replicate that as a way
right,
of kind of beginning to understand how to like create compositions uh,
right.
on the
You know what's another
turntables?
one like that? And this is going very deep. Uh, is the lesson 1, 2, and 3 by
Yeah,
W.D. and Steinsky,
yeah.
which is another one. A friend of mine actually was DJing a party. He said a DJ went and did that live. Like actually, some DJs can do lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3 live.
Yeah.
Like
Well, that was
that
for
was not
us, just speaking of my crew, like my old crew, Soul Sad's Quantum, like that was how like DJ Shadow and then folks like Cut Chemist and stuff, like taught themselves too to create compositions. And
right.
um,
I'm not sure you can even.
and Shadow's doing it on like a little 4-track cassette,
Yeah.
recorder and then, Cut coming along later and I'm just trying to figure out how to do it on 3 turntables and stuff like that. So yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I feel like maybe the next era, and I'm probably skipping ahead, is like the Run-DMC era. They kind
Mhm.
of were like the next, because they also made rap very mainstream, but they did things that were also like on the street considered to be very cool.
Right. Yeah.
But what would you say like Run-DMC's contribution is to sort of the history of rap?
So, like, if you kind of pull back a little bit, right? Like one of the things that I started noticing was, oh, there's a way in which like the music kind of turns over like
Hmm.
every 3 or 4 years, right? So if you're talking about 79 and Rapper's Delight, then you kind of go up to 82 and then what you've got is like, the message and you've got Planet Rock. And I think like Run DMC kind of ushers in this next era.
Yeah.
And it really kind of takes off in 1986. Um, but what's happening with Run DMC is a very smart and wise kind of way of thinking about how actually hip hop could swallow up
Hmm.
all of pop music,
Right.
right?
And it did.
It's already there in the theory of it, right? Like
Yeah.
when you've got the DJs like in the Bronx, like playing Kraftwerk, the Rolling Stones with Fela Kuti, along with like, the James Browns, the Jimmy Casters,
Right.
the all of those kinds of stuff. It's already in there. Like hip hop is already swallowing up all of these different types of genres, all of pop music, right? Um, but what Run DMC starts to do is to really place that into a template where they can um, perform it and make it their own.
Mhm.
So they're over there rapping over Billy Squire, right? They're really Billy Squire, the big beat,
Yeah.
rock beats, like guitar rock
Here we
beats.
go. Here we go.
Yeah, yeah, here we go, yo, here we go. And yeah, and so like that's some of their stuff. They're rapping over disco records, right? They're rapping
Mhm.
over like Cerrone, they're rapping over all these different kinds of things, and they're rapping over, of course, very famously later on, Aerosmith, right?
Right.
With Walk
It's
This
another
Way,
big moment. Yeah.
which becomes the sort of so they're actually thinking a lot about how do we take all of what we've been doing here, and then we swallow up pop music and we go pop ourselves. We cross over ourselves. At this time, like radio is super segregated.
I
So you
know
got
that's
the
what
white,
people don't realize. Yeah.
yeah,
Less
yeah.
people,
It's really like you got your rock stations and then you've got your, black music stations.
right.
Like, and
And by
never
the way,
the
even the
two
black
cross.
music stations weren't playing rap for a long time. They
No,
didn't.
absolutely.
They thought it
Yeah.
was like whatever a fad, or they were even kind of like vaguely like thought it was lower. I don't know what they thought, but I've some of these Frankie Crocker, some of these guys were not into. So I grew up in New York City, and the only place you could really hear rap was at night on Fridays and Saturday nights. DJ Red Alert and Chuck Chill Out would have these shows, and Mr. Magic, of course, would have these shows, and you could hear rap.
Yeah.
But that was it. Like
Yeah.
I put my finger on the pause button, and they probably had a similar thing in Hawaii and the Bay Area. There was just a DJ that would play rap music at nights. Like that was the only time it was relegated to nights.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and so
right.
I don't know how anybody else was hearing rap at this time because I had to. That was in New York, and I think those shows were exported. I remember one time hearing a DJ say like we're being played in the UK or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, that was the only. So it was hard to find this music, which is hard to WAMO in Pittsburgh has
Right.
apparently. Yep.
Lady B was one of the pioneers there. Yeah.
Right.
And
So
in
there's
Philadelphia. Yeah.
so everybody has their own memory of that. But I think it's hard to imagine. I mean, for our kids, of course, to imagine there was a time when it was really hard to hear a certain type of music. It just wasn't readily available to you at any time. You had to actually show up at a time with your finger on a pause button because you couldn't find the records a lot of times. I
Yeah.
couldn't, and I was looking for them.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't know the new stuff. So anyway, yeah, I think that was interesting. Run-DMC changed that a bit because they made it a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah, they were able to like actually break through the segregation at radio, right? So
Yep.
on their very first record, they're making like rock box. They're bringing Eddie Martinez to kind of emulate Eddie Van Halen, and
Boy, you suck at every perpetrating a fraud. You're out the cold whack to get the crowd goes on. You're the kind of guy that girl ignored. I'm driving caddy, you fixing a Ford. My name is Joseph Simmons, but my middle name's Warren. And when I'm rocking on the mic, you should all applaud because we're willing, dealing. We got a funny feeling. We rock from floor up to the ceiling. We groove it, you move it. It has been proven. We count the 7 beats because our music is soothing. We created, related, and often demonstrated. We're just a sucker MC, make the other sucker tainted. We're rising, surprising, and often hypnotizing. We always tell the truth and then we never spit no lies.
so they're like consciously thinking about how do we break this to larger audiences. Like we're too big for the boxes that they've created for us right now. Is sort of the idea that they had, and I think that they did it really, really well. And so when the Beastie Boys come along, like you literally have this like strategy from like Run DMC and the Beastie Boys to try to cross over, like for the Beastie Boys to cross over from rock radio to black radio, soul music radio, R&B radio, whatever you want to call it at that particular time, and for Run DMC to cross over from black radio to white rock radio.
Right.
And
They
that's
didn't even-
sort of the next kind of big breakthrough, I think, in the 80s.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes Run-DMC did it reluctantly. Like I had Dave, his last name, Eggers, who wrote a book about Walk This Way. They weren't crazy about that record. Like they didn't really want to do that record because that wasn't the stuff that they were, that was happening at the parties and stuff like that. They felt like a little bit. Is that your understanding too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. The thing that they do is they really break it open for all of these audiences to be able to come back together too. Because in some ways, like the radio segregation is sort of, influencing the social segregation as well. Like, so like we experience it in high schools, right? Like you're a rocker, right? You got long hair, you got a mullet, you're you're vibing out to Quiet Riot or whatever. And like, or you're like, you're a B-boy and you're wearing athletic gear and stuff and you're listening to Run DMC and all that. So I don't know.
So going just your template of 3 years, 2 to 3 years rap kind of changes. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. So after Run DMC, when I started getting really excited about rap again, and I loved all that stuff, but is when like people like Eric B and Rakim came along. And to me, like when I heard that Eric B record, Paid in Full, that was like something very different was happening. And I don't know, and is that correct? And it seemed like that was when rap was changing again, where it was first of all, the tone was the flow was totally different. It was like this low key, kind of mellow way of rapping it. And I don't know, it felt so different at the time. It's funny. I have a personal trainer, so LA, and I got him I turned him on to old school hip hop, and he's like discovering hip hop as I discovered it when I was 17 years old. Like, and he's like, which is awesome.
I kind of envy him. Yeah. Like,
exactly. And he's like, I just listened to that EPMD record. That's really good. I'm like, oh my God. But it's the same way with me because I didn't really listen to hard rock until I was in my 40s. And I'm like, that band Led Zeppelin was really revolutionary. So he's super into it, but he, he's like, God, and it's cool to hear that he listens to Eric B and Rakim and is like blown away by it, in 2026. To me, listening to it in 1987, like I was blown away by it. So do you feel like I just saw Rakim in concert, by the way, here in LA, and it was incredible. But do you feel like that was kind of a different era? Like that sort of brought in this other EPMD, Rakim. Yeah.
Thinking of a master plan.
Cause ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up with lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence, thinking how could I get some dead presidents? I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. I used to roll up, this is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny, stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learn to earn cause I'm righteous. I feel great, so maybe I might just search for a 9 to 5. If I strive, then maybe
yes, you could kind of mark 1986. 1986 is the year of the big crossover.
Star.
That's the year. Yeah, that's the year that on the one hand, like Run-DMC is kind of they're coming out with like Walk This Way, and the Beastie Boys are kind of coming out with License to Ill and stuff. So the crossover is happening, but there's also this underground that's building as well in New York City, and the kind of at the heart of it is like people like Marley Marl who are experimenting with this new tool called the sampler, right?
Yeah.
And so, Marley Marl is like the musical person who's kind of making a lot of these kinds of things happen.
Right.
Like taking what they've been doing live with 2 turntables and now being able to loop samples to create music.
Yes, y'all are to the like beating. You could either dance or just have a seat and listen to the way in what I am displaying. A different kind of rapper language that I am saying. To all the party people that exhibit for info. When it comes to rockin' parties, I am a nympho. Maniac, brainiac for doing my dancing. My record make the music. We'll put you in a trance and hypnotize your body and like.
And so there's all these amazing breakthroughs that are happening in the sound and the texture of the music. Whereas before you had to rely on house bands, or you had to rely on like, sort of trained musicians did a lot of like, Larry Smith basically produced a lot of the early Run-DMC stuff.
Larry put me inside his Cadillac. Is that Larry?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Got a Cadillac, took off and we never came back. Right. That Larry, absolutely. Yeah. So at the same time, like this underground is kind of forming. And also we could also talk about like what's happening like all across the country after 1986 as well. Like what's happening in Miami, what's happening here in the Bay Area. These regional scenes are kind of
regional scenes. And I'm focused, because I grew up in New York, but only later found out there was all these things happening like in New York, maybe later in New Orleans, but you said in Miami, the Bay Area. So yeah, sorry, this is very New York centric.
It's all good. But I think it's really important because like what you have is like this sort of almost like a countercultural impulse happening, right? At the grassroots level. And it's fun. It's sort of like lifted up by radio shows like Red Alerts.
Ladies and gentlemen, the sounds you're about to hear is from Cool DJ Red Alert on 98.7 Kiss FM. Hey, Daddy, start it off like this.
You're listening to New York's #1 radio station and New York's #1 DJ, Cool DJ, Red Alert.
By a lot of the radio shows.
Marley Marl had a show.
Marley Marl had his own show. Like, the Supreme Team, a lot of these other folks had shows that were like being able to lift up all of this brand new music, and teens are listening to this, So it's the young folks who are at the, like they always are, and who are like they are now, even like at the edge of the aesthetic avant-garde, like young people as like leading the avant-garde. That's like that was an exciting idea for me, right?
Yeah.
As a young person in the 80s, like, like not only is this incredible music, it's like this stuff is the most futuristic, like out there, like leading edge stuff that anybody could be doing. Like that was exciting,
That was exciting. Like punk
rock.
Yeah.
So like to hear Rakim like that and hear him like sort of, Rakim comes from an R&B family and a jazz family.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he's thinking about the sound of a saxophone.
Right. I've heard him say that
He's
it was like
thinking
doing
about
a solo of a John Coltrane solo or something. Right.
exactly. And so he's thinking about rhythm in a completely different way than like and the chicken tastes like wood. Like he's like
Yeah.
he's not thinking about rhymes in this sort of like very strict kind of, measure. Like it's almost like like whatever, the poet's breaking out of iambic pentameter.
Yeah. Very
Right?
syncopated. The
It's
flow is, yeah.
syncopated, and he's thinking a lot about like how to like run lines across like beats and then he's also, because he's from the 5% Nation, he's also in this mode where he's following in Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation's footsteps. He's sort of and Sun Ra and Lee Scratch Perry and the Afrofuturists, right? He's like talking about traveling at magnificent miles throughout the universe, right?
Yeah.
So he's sort of also like in a lot of, and also doing the ghetto, right? Like talking about the ghetto and doing it through a meditation. Like you literally see when he's rapping the ghetto, like you see him sitting like, lotus style and like meditating on what's happening right outside, the shelter wherever he's in. So it's just very powerful stuff. And I think that this is why folks start calling, this particular period, the golden age of hip hop.
Yeah, this is when it started.
This decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very poetic at this part.
Yeah.
We can't deny the importance of Yo MTV raps too.
No,
Although
yeah.
I didn't,
1000%.
that was what, like 88, I think I wrote down is when it debuted.
Mhm.
And, I think for a lot of people listening, that might be the first time they ever really started finding out about rap, or at least knowing that it was more than just Run-DMC and like a few of the hit, like there was a whole movement, right? And it brought it to the country and the world, really.
Yeah.
So that show was very important in the history of rap, certainly in the 80s.
Yeah, I think so. I think Fab, like doing that show and then like Fab and Jonathan Demme making the decision to like go to all of these different cities where things are happening. Like I still never going to forget like Fab, they're in the back of a pickup truck, like driving through South Los Angeles, right? Like with NWA, right? Like that stuff is it was amazing because then you started seeing how all of these different types of scenes were connecting up. Everybody had a different kind of sound, a different kind of vibe, but Yo MTV Raps, by being something that was being beamed like across the US, across borders, all around, and then also representing different parts of this nascent hip hop nation, that was really, really, really powerful. Again, I think Fat Book is going to just be amazing. I can't wait.
I can't wait. I mean, I actually was pitched to have him come on my podcast, and he's like a legend.
You should, yeah.
I think I've talked before because he had another book out. Yeah, he's amazing. So we're going to have Fat Fight Freddy on for sure. All right. So as we round up the 80s here, it feels like, well, you mentioned NWA. You cannot talk about the 80s without talking about the sort of advent of like the West Coast, right? And like you said, there's scenes happening in lots of different cities, but the ones that really break out and sort of change things, at least, or become more mainstream, are like what's going on with NWA and the West Coast.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube. From the gang called niggas with attitudes. When I'm called off, I got a sawed off. Squeeze the trigger and bodies are hauled off. You too, boy, if you fuck with me. The police are gonna have to come and get me off your ass. That's how I'm going out. For the punk motherfuckers that's showing out. Niggas want the mumble, they wanna rumble. Mix them and cook them in a pot like gumbo.
That the West Coast, we were talking about, like, I didn't grow up I'm in LA now and I've been here for the last 20 years, but I talked to my friends who grew up, in this era, and they were like, yeah, it was really kind of like before Dre and Ice Cube and all those guys came around. West Coast rap is very different. Like the sequin, they're wearing like sequin, like, like it's like kind of disco-y. I don't even know what you call that kind of music, but then nobody was really, well, the thing is they were doing that kind of like Schoolie D was doing that kind of like gangster type music a little bit earlier, and Ice-T and stuff, but for some reason it resonated in like 89, 88, 89, right? It seems like there was like this I don't know why, but just like the West Coast suddenly took over rap music, and that was like the next era.
Yeah. I think that that's true. I mean, we're missing a big piece of this right now.
Okay, good. What are we missing?
Which is Public Enemy.
Yo, Chuck, these
Oh, yeah.
are still front on us. Show them that we can do this, cause we always do this. Yeah, boy.
Bass, how low can you go? Death row? What a brother know. Once again, back is the incredible rhyme animal, the uncannibal thief. Public Enemy #1. 5 volts said freeze, and I got numb. Can I tell them that I really never had a gun? But it's the wax that the Terminator X bun. Now they got me in the cell cause my records they sell. Cause a brother like me said, well, Farrakhan's a prophet and I think you wanna listen to what he can say to you. What you ought to do is follow for now. Power the people say, make a miracle. Keep up the lyrical. Black is back, all in, we're gonna win. Check it out.
Yeah, yo, come on.
Here we go again.
Boogie Down Productions, MC Light,
Yeah,
Queen Latifah, and like,
Oh
you know,
my
so
God.
like part of what I think what's happening with the evolution of the underground is you're getting a group of folks who are really inspired by the student activism that's happening on the campuses, and like except for like you and me and everybody maybe on this like who are tuning into this podcast right now, it's like people don't realize that there was a lot of activism like among young people during the 1980s. People think it was like the grand narrative is like folks were like
We're happy.
or
Make
whatever.
America great again. That's like some weird like era. Like this was like a happy time, and like everybody was just. I see these YouTube videos that people like Gen Zers make. Like, I just wish I was alive in the '80s. Like it was great. You didn't have a phone, and I'm like, no. Let's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, the anti-apartheid movement was a catalyst for all of this in the mid to late 80s. And so, out of that, you get folks like Public Enemy, you get like KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions, you get Queen Latifah, you get like these folks. And I think on the West Coast, what you have is literally like they're sitting there going, we're going to be the opposite of all that.
Yep.
We're going to be the opposite. And Public Enemy making incredible music with the Bomb Squad. That's just like, it's like, it's got the energy and the bombast of punk rock. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Some
who
of
would
my
have ever
favorite-
thought to kind of like have a kettle whistle as a hook for a record, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it wasn't. It was like, it was Maceo like playing a solo and stuff.
Rebel Without a Pause. That
Right.
Yeah.
And like this song that like literally every time he dropped it, they couldn't play it in the nightclubs because every time he played it, fights would break out. There was just that energy of like.
I heard Chuck D interview once.
kind
He
of-
said like nobody could dance to our music. Like it's like he's like you put our music on in the club and everybody stops dancing. I
They
mean, it was
stop
great.
dancing or they start rioting. Yeah, totally.
rioting.
2000%. But it was powerful and it was like, it really kind of captured a moment. And I think that Dre is listening to this and he's like, I have to be able to get at that kind of aesthetic, like that kind of immediacy that just reaches out and grabs you by the neck. Right.
Yeah.
But like, this is not like, we're not down for all this, like, political stuff, right? We just want to we want to do all the things that we want to do. We want to drink, we want to smoke, we want to like get into it with people that we don't like, we want to do all the things that we're going to do to women. That's basically like their thing. They're like 100% in, so they're like, can we attach, like if Public Enemy is going to be like 100% super ego, like, can we be like 100% id, like, and have the same kind of vibe? And that's like, I think the vibe that they're going for. And then they get Jerry Heller, who is like, this stuff needs to go to the kids in Venice. Like this needs to go to the kids in Orange County. Like this is what they're thinking at first, right? They're thinking regionally. They're not thinking about nationally, but Jerry's like, this needs to get to white kids, like point blank. And so that's what they try to do with this. And it does, and it crosses over. And it's also speaking again to like this like intensity that's happening on the streets. Daryl Gates, police chief Daryl Gates is doing all of his crap, and rounding up young people, like they're putting curfews on young people. The gang wars and the violence and gun violence is reaching a peak. And so Public Enemy like doesn't necessarily speak to that, to that directly. right? And
No.
NWA kind of captures
Right.
some of that.
Kind of
So
come back
that's-
to the message, but 7 years later. Yeah. Kind of like
Mhm.
what they were doing. I mean, we could keep going. I'm going to stop it at 90 because I don't know, because we could keep literally talk for the next 4 hours, and I want to be mindful of your time. And I would love to do an episode sometime of like your favorite Gen X rappers, because it's a tough one. Because we kind of stop now. Like we start getting into an era now where some of my favorite rappers start emerging, like Tribe Called Quest and Brand Nubian and all these guys from that early 90s era. But how do you I'm sure people have asked you this and you probably don't like to answer it, but who would you say are the three best MCs? Like, does that go, can you even do it?
It's hard, man. It's really hard. I mean, if we're limiting it to the 80s, maybe it's a slight bit easier, but like,
Yeah, like, we limit to the 80s. Is it like, let me think. Because then you'd have to okay, I have one that's really off because I would say because of his importance and because how much he influenced. So there's this guy, Schoolie D, and a lot of people don't know about Schoolie D, who came out of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well, I actually once had on my podcast because I found him. I tracked him down. It was hard to find him, but I did find him. He started making these records called Gucci Time and PSK, and he designed all his own art on the label and stuff. But it was like the original gangster rap. And in fact, Ice-T has said I was just kind of copying Schoolie D.
PSK, we're making that green. People always say, what the hell does that mean? Green for the people who can't understand. A one homeboy became a man. As for the way you scream and shout, one by one I'm knocking you out. Came for the way my DJ cutting. Other MCs, man, you ain't say nothing. Rocking on to the brink of dawn. I think cold money, your time is on.
So Schoolie D is one. I don't know if he's the best rapper, but I think he's a very, very important rapper that's often overlooked. I've mentioned Rakim. I just love Rakim. There's something about his voice and his flow. It's timeless to me. Like I could listen to it over and over and over and over again. And then, then it gets hard with number 3. I'm trying to think. I love Guru from Gangstar. Rest in peace. And I'm not going to say Run-DMC, I love those guys. I wouldn't say they're my favorite rappers of all time. I know that Kool Moe Dee gets really mad when he's not put on these lists. He's publicly gotten very. Who are some of your? I mean, you're looking at. We have got to look up a list of rappers to even be able to decide. What do you guys say? Let's put some in the comments. Best rappers from the 80s.
Let's definitely hear that.
Somebody put nobody put Skee-Lo, but there's funny rappers that from Yo and TV raps that were one-hit wonders. I mean, you could say Snoop is more 90s, right?
Snoop's
Dre,
yeah.
And then Jay-Z comes much later. I don't know. I know it's a hard one.
Yeah.
So we got.
I mean, for me, I would definitely say I think everybody has Rakim on the top of their list. I mean, Chuck was just the authority. He just had that authority. He had that impact, from the first, he just has to say bass and you're okay, whatever you say next, I'm listening to.
By the way, Chuck's an old guy. Chuck was born in 60. No offense, if Chuck's listening. But I mean, he's a boomer. A lot of these guys that we loved growing up were boomers. They were young, they were old, Africa Bambaataa is a boomer. These guys
even when was Rakim born? Rakim's in the early 60s too. I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably
it's all kind of a weird
a mix of guys that were born in the this late early 60s, and then but then you get guys like Phife Dawg and Q-Tip that were born that are my age. But yeah, okay, I like Chuck D. I'm gonna take Chuck D, Rakim. I feel like we need a third guy, and it could be a girl. We haven't even talked about Salt and Peppa. And you mentioned Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
There weren't as many female rappers back in the day.
I loved Light, MC.
Light.
When she came out, I Cram to Understand You. She just had that vibe of you know what? Don't even try to come at me with this girl rapper stuff. She had such presence, and
What
When you say you love me, it doesn't matter. It goes into my head as just chit chatter. You may think it's egotistical or just very free, but what you say, I take none of it seriously. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you so. I'd let you pretend to read me, and then you'd know. Cause I hate when one attempts to analyze. In fact, I despise those who even try to look into my eyes to see what I am thinking. That dream is over, your yacht is sinking. I tell all of you, like I told all of them, what you say to me is just paper thin. Word.
Yeah, I love.
I love Light. That's a great one.
Light.
And I love Roxanne Shantae's voice. Like I love her cracked voice, the way she raps, and her Roxanne. Yeah, Roxanne is one of the great sort of the live version of that is like one of the great recordings. I think this is a very impressive list.
So much. I mean, we're not even talking about Pos and Dave, you know, from.
Sure, we didn't even talk about De La Soul. Oh my God, I didn't even put them in my. That was a
they're like, you know, probably all time for me.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, mirror, what is wrong? Can it be my De La clothes or is it just my De La song? What I do ain't make believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being De La, it's just me, myself, and I.
And then Cube really steps out after the 90s, but I think
Bottom's LL Cool J. Where do you think LL Cool J stands in? We didn't even mention LL Cool J, and he's, you know, sometimes I feel like he might be overlooked. I guess people have mixed feelings about LL Cool J. I mean, I love him and I love the early stuff like the I Can't Live Without My Radio and that stuff. Well, I know I like a lot of LL Cool J actually when I think back on his canon. Yeah. Where do you think what's his?
You know, like I do love like LL's like early stuff too, like I'm Bad, you know, like you know, all of that type of stuff is like kind of in every DJ's crate because like the energy that he's carrying on that, like just, and then how he just punctuate, like Rick Rubin giving him these beats that he can like punctuate every line, you know?
Yeah.
Like LL Cool J is hard as hell. Like, you know, you got the guitar stab and it's just, LL is amazing. And always gets me amped for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Big ups to LL. All right. And I feel like now that you mentioned De La Soul, I'm like, oh, we missed that story. I mean, the 80s could literally, I mean, so anybody who says the 80s, like doesn't sort of credit the 80s for being tremendously probably one of the most important decades of rap, if not the most important. I mean, you're crazy. Like the stuff that was coming out of the 80s is just timeless and innovative and exciting. And I mean, you could just go on and on and on.
I mean, for me, I feel like, you know, like I write a lot about like arts movements, music movements, you know, social movements. And the really interesting period is this expansion period, like, you know, so like just after the Big Bang, right? Where everything, like all these possibilities are available. And, you know, the 1990s is when things like really begin to take off for hip hop, like globally. Right?
Yeah.
This is like the big crossover period is the 1990s. And the end of the 1990s is a lot less fun than the beginning of the 1990s for me. But you don't even get to that without having this like sort of huge explosion.
Right. Biggie
like
and
expanding. Yeah. You don't get any of that unless you like talk about the 80s and what all these folks kind of sit and play.
What do you think? And this is the risk of us sounding like old men here, but what do you think?
We're already old men, man.
Yeah, exactly. The state of hip hop now, like hip hop has changed. I mean, it's gone through so many iterations. It's still around. It's more influential probably than it's ever been. You know, my kids are 16 and 20. They love even current hip hop, and they love. I mean, thankfully,
you said even current hip hop.
Yeah, I know. I guess I've revealed myself. No, but I like a lot of the current. There is some good stuff, current stuff, and thankfully my son, who's really up on this stuff, will play me stuff. I'll be, oh my God, that's good. But of course, I always like the kind of hip hop that I like now has a name. Didn't have a name back then. It's called boom bop or
boom bop, boom bap. Yeah,
boom bap.
Yeah. The boom bap. Yeah.
Which is kind of has a certain beat, and I didn't realize. Like, I guess it kind of. And now the hip hop, it doesn't always have that beat unless they kind of go old school and they start playing the stuff that I love. But what do you think about the state of hip hop right now? Or I mean, are you still as excited about it as you were back then?
I mean, how could I be?
Yeah.
I'm very middle aged now. It's like
Oh, middle
I
age.
like I don't. I mean, music is still like so much a part of my life, but I don't think you can ever have that kind of zeal that you do when you're a teenager
Yeah.
or a young person in your 20s when you're like
You're forming.
like we're not like we're gonna go and see my old friend Lyrics Born tonight with like playing with like a 20-year-old guy named Seiji Oda and we're gonna have a lot of fun, but are we gonna have as much fun as we did the first time like LB took the stage like back in 1992? Like no, we're not. Like we're
Yeah.
just not. It's like it is what it is. But I don't follow it as assiduously as I used to, and it's impossible to. What I feel like is like we're now in this space where it's so big
Yeah. It's not a.
that we can choose like, oh, like let's listen to just the folks who are working in the sort of boom bap kind of like
Yeah.
classification or whatever. Like let's enjoy like Run the Jewels and let's enjoy, I don't know, Freddie Gibbs. Let's enjoy like,
Yeah.
like let's enjoy like the folks who are working kind of maybe like what the kids might think is in the tradition, It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm closed off to any of the other stuff. It just means that I'm not going to be able to enjoy it the way that I might have when I first heard like So What You Saying, and
Yeah.
and that's all good. That's just part of life. I love though that I can have these conversations with my kids and we can share playlists and I could just be like, oh, okay. Like one of my kids is a recording artist and the other makes videos and so they're in the middle of
AMX recording artist. Can we get his stuff on Spotify?
yeah, sure. Yeah, on Bandcamp, Spotify, sure, all the platforms. Johnny Chang, he didn't have a.
How old is he?
He is in his late 20s now.
Okay, I only asked
He's
because my funny wants is a recording artist as well.
Oh, okay. So he's been doing it, and everybody can be these days. It's amazing, right?
Right.
But he's been doing it for over like since he was probably 12 or 13. He was born in it. Like we grew into it and we helped to make it and we helped to build it up. And they never.
Does he like the stuff that you grew up with, or did
Yeah.
your? So do I.
They were forced to listen to all that when they were kids, but
Right.
it's not
I
like
love it.
it's not like. Well, I guess I feel that way about my parents' music now too. When I go back and I listen to Nat King Cole or
But it's different though. Like, I find it interesting because when I was a kid, I would my parents. My dad was a professional composer, so he listened to a lot of classical music and a lot of jazz, bebop jazz. I didn't really appreciate it, but if I were listening to the music that was popular, 40 years ago in 1980, I would be listening to like, big band stuff, right? So that was so different and so like out of our milieu, and nobody liked that kind of music. But now kids will listen to music that's 40, 45 years old and be like, this is dope, which is really interesting.
It's like it feels like it's kind of collapsed in some ways,
Right.
and it's kind of expanded.
Yeah.
And so it like I was doing a class with a bunch of college students last night. These are 18 and 19-year-olds, and they're like, yeah, I listen to everything, and it's like they can like their identities are not tied into like our some Breakfast Club. Are you the rocker? Are you the are you the punker? Are you the goth? Are you the hip hopper? Right? It's not that like that anymore. And thank God in a way. And also like there's a way in which we can miss like maybe the ways that like you were saying earlier, we had to go out and get, the things we had to develop this, we had to like taste was something that you acquired, right?
Yeah.
Like you literally like had to build it. And I think these days, it's much more democratic, and I think it's also much more diffuse. I can see what the old folks like us have to say about like these kids have no taste. They don't know how to separate what's good from what's bad. I don't know. I don't necessarily feel. I don't necessarily feel any kind of way about that, but I can see why some folks would be like that.
Yeah, no, it's the way they consume is so different. So let's take this last and talk about what you've got coming out. You've got this great book on Bruce Lee, which is called what? It's called, I had it in my intro.
Vladimir Echo, Bruce Lee and the Making of Asian America. Yeah.
Right. And your Substack, Notes from the Edge, which is connected to this. What else? Is there any other cool projects you're working on?
I do. I have a couple of things that I'm at the beginning of, one of which would hopefully be very musical and that kind of thing. So I'm really hoping that we're able to get this off the ground. Still a little bit too early. Like I just put this book out last September, got to tour it, and I'm still doing some events around the country on that, and getting to talk a little bit about Bruce, about Asian American history. We're kind of on the edge of what could be some really more difficult years. The end of the Trump administration the first Trump administration was very difficult for us as Asian Americans, and I think that kind of like spurred me in a lot of ways to be able to like organize and finish this book. And now, like with all the sort of whatever saber rattling around China and all of the wild stuff that's kind of happening in Southeast Asia, in, the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, depending on who you are, or, what's happening in terms of the border crisis in Southeast Asia and all these other, what's happening across the Pacific. Like, I feel like called to do a lot more work around being able to help folks understand like what the deep histories are of this place that I grew up in, and this place here, like we are, right? You're in LA, I'm here in the Bay Area at the edge of the Pacific, and how it's really going to impact us, I think, over the next few decades.
That's really important stuff. I'm glad you're part of that movement to draw attention to all that stuff. That's exciting. Well, let me give my little promo here. I'd love to just tell everybody that if that's listening, that if you go to genxcon.com, I am hosting or trying to put together an event called Gen X Con, which is basically a gathering where us Gen Xers can meet in one place, preferably a mall. I'm looking at mall spaces and learn. Basically it's a little bit of a celebration of the past, but also the future. And there'll be a sort of a learning track, sort of looking at where we are in our age right now, whether it's, empty nesting or, sandwich generation kind of stuff, or even, maybe you could host a panel on, being Asian American, and a Gen Xer right now. I'd love to learn more about that. Dealing with that. But there will also be, we're also talking to artists about coming and performing live, from that era. Maybe some of the artists that we talked about today, that would be kind of exciting. And we'll have some arcade machines. We will have a food court with Orange Julius. I shouldn't, I don't even know if they're going to happen yet. But this is what I'm planning.
We have hot dog on a stick and all of these.
Exactly. Hot dog on a stick. Yeah. There'll be a Sam Goodies, because we mentioned Sam Goodies. So it's genxcon.com, and you can sign up. So please do that, because I'm just trying to build a mailing list now and gauge interest. And once we get a lot of interest, then we can start getting some sponsorships and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to plug that, since I've got 52 people watching. And if you're in the LA area tonight, I'm DJing tonight. I don't know if you bought this, Jeff. DJing the early bird special at the Room in Santa Monica. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, and I just play 80s and 90s music all night long. And it starts at 7 p.m. This is for like old people. So it starts, I shouldn't say old people, for people who want to get into bed by 10 p.m. It's goes from 7 to 10. And it's really fun.
Age appropriate.
Very age appropriate, because I'm so happy that it's over by 10, because I remember those days when I would have to lug my crates and it would be over at 2 a.m. and I just couldn't. No
can't
crates
do that anymore. Bad back.
No crates. I don't. I use it. I use an electronic deck. Anyway,
you gonna play Planet Rock?
What's that?
You gonna play Planet Rock?
I will. In tribute to this, I will definitely play Planet Rock. I love Planet Rock, and we'll see if people know it, because not everybody knows Planet Rock. how many people here listening know Planet Rock? I mean, how could you not know Planet Rock, right? I'm putting a heart there because, but some people don't know Planet Rock.
Yeah.
It's one of those, yeah. I feel like there's people who know it and there's people who don't. And if you don't know it, friend of mine.
Once
Calvin
it
Klein's
comes
no
on,
friend of mine.
everybody, if they thought they didn't know it when it comes on.
Yeah, then you hear the beat. Yeah, you're like, that's Planet Rock. That's Planet Rock. Yes. All right, Jeff, this has been, I'm so enlightening and interesting. And thank you so much for your time. And I'm just so excited you do what you do. Follow Jeff.
Likewise.
Subscribe. All right, man. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this experiment with us. I don't even know how to get off. Oh, here it is. The M2. I don't even know. How do you even turn this thing off? But, all right, Jeff. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Right.
Party people, can yo get funky? So Sonic Force, can yo get funky? The Zulu Nation, can yo get funky? Yeah, just hit me. Just taste the funk and hit me. Just get on down and hit me. That bot just getting so funky now, hit me. Yeah, just hit me.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. If you like reading about the 80s and the 90s and the travails of Generation X, I encourage you to go to my Substack, Small Talk, and we got you covered there. Until we meet next time, this is John Small saying, see ya!